Hey everyone, and welcome back to Rank and File Sports. And today we're going to be hopping right back into our series where we are predicting every single Power 4 team's record by the start of the college football season. Today it's the North Carolina Tar Heels. North Carolina lost Drake Maye to the NFL draft at the end of last season, and now they are looking to replace him at quarterback with either grad transfer Max Johnson from Texas A&M or their very own Connor Harrell, who is a very talented dual threat quarterback. They've said this competition is going to continue into the fall, so we don't know everything about this team yet. But based on the talent of both of these quarterbacks, while they might not be quite as prolific passers as May was, they should definitely be able to keep this North Carolina offense scoring a lot of points, just like the fans are used to. The Tar Heels kick off the season on the road against Minnesota. The Golden Gophers are going to be one of the worst teams in the Big Ten Conference, finishing near the bottom of the standings. So this game shouldn't be overly difficult for North Carolina. But that being said, it is a road game to start the season, so there are a lot of unknown factors, especially with a new quarterback in the offense. Coming back home, though, Charlotte, North Carolina Central, and even James Madison shouldn't be very difficult games. And then they go on the road to start ACC play with Duke. Bitter rivals in basketball, but in football, while they still don't like each other, North Carolina is a better team. Duke did pretty well last year, but they lost Riley Leonard to the transfer portal and are set to take a small step backwards this season. After that game, North Carolina comes back home for two more with Pitt and Georgia Tech. They are better than both of these schools. Georgia Tech is getting a little bit better these past few seasons, especially with Haynes King at quarterback. Following their first bye week, which comes pretty late for the first one, they have two straight road games at Virginia and at Florida State. Florida State is by far the more difficult matchup here, and that's going to be a really, really tough game for the Tar Heels to win, especially on the road. Following their second bye week, the schedule gets a little bit easier the next two games with Wake Forest and a road trip to Boston College, who also isn't going to be very good this season. And they finish it off at home with NC State, who a lot of people are really high on this season. The Wolfpack are going to be a very, very talented team. This should be a really close game. North Carolina does have the home field advantage. It's a rivalry matchup. Should be a very, very fun one to watch. Overall, the Tar Heels have 7 home games and 5 away games, with only 2 of their opponents ranked in the rank and file top 25, giving them a schedule difficulty of 3.5 out of 10.
Looking at the guaranteed wins for North Carolina, we have two of them. We have Charlotte and North Carolina Central. Two pretty easy non conference games for the Tar Heels that we don't expect them to have much of a problem with. Looking at North Carolina's likely wins, we have JMU, Pitt, Georgia Tech, Virginia, Wake Forest, and Boston College. North Carolina is more talented than all of these teams. Mac Brown is a tremendous recruiter. Even at North Carolina, he's done a great job. But the dominant recruiting run he had at Texas is kind of what solidified that reputation of his. But starting off with JMU, this is a JMU team that was very successful last season, but their head coach is now at Indiana, so they will take a step back. We expect North Carolina to still be, one of the better teams in the ACC. So we can't reasonably say that JMU is going to win this game. Moving on to Pitt. This is a Pitt team that is not the same as they were a couple years ago. That team won the ACC championship. Last year's team didn't make a bowl, so we expect this year's Pitt team to be closer to last year's team than 2022. So we don't expect them to put up much of a fight against the Tar Heels. As far as Georgia Tech is concerned, this is a Georgia Tech team that is on the rise in the ACC, but they aren't on the level of North Carolina yet. So we can't, predict a Georgia Tech upset with that knowledge. As far as Virginia and Boston College go, these are two teams that are routinely one of the worst in the ACC, especially Virginia. North Carolina, of all the teams on this list, this is probably the game we expect them to have the easiest time. Um, as far as Boston College goes, this is a team that is, as we said, one of the worst teams in the ACC most years. At that may be a little harsh. So, at best, though, they are, the lower tier ACC. North Carolina is far from that. We don't expect this game to be close for very long. As far as Wake Forest goes, this is a Wake team that made the ACC title game a couple years ago. Over the past 5 years or so, they've been one of the better teams in the ACC. We expect them to be, middle of the pack this year. But we do think North Carolina is a little bit better than they are, so we have to give the Tar Heels the advantage in that one. We have three toss-ups for this North Carolina team going into 2024. We have Minnesota, Duke, and NC State. Minnesota is a Week 1 matchup for the Tar Heels. This is a game that will be played in Minneapolis, so Minnesota has a home field advantage in this one. Minnesota's line play is always phenomenal. They're physical. They're not afraid to ground and pound throughout a game and just wear their opponent down. But North Carolina has better athletes, better roster, and a Hall of Fame coach, so it really is an evenly matched situation here. Really could go either way, hence why we have it as a toss-up. As far as Duke goes, this is a Duke team that North Carolina fans don't like, and the hatred is reciprocated, although this is mainly a basketball rivalry instead of a football rivalry, but there is still some passion there on both sides. So we expect this game to be pretty close, given that background context. Duke won't be as good as they were last year. They're losing their coach and their quarterback. But we expect them still to be, one of the middle of the pack teams in the ACC. But we think that this game's going to go down to the wire like it has in recent years. As far as NC State goes, we actually think NC State is a better team. But the game is in Chapel Hill. Both of these teams don't like each other, specifically NC State fans really don't like North Carolina. This could go down as one of the best games of the 2024 college football season. We have one likely loss this year for North Carolina, and that's the defending ACC champions, the Florida State Seminoles. This is a Florida State team that doesn't have their quarterback Jordan Travis anymore, but they do bring in Oregon State transfer DJ Uiagalelei. So we think FSU may take a step back, but they still will be, right, at the top of the ACC along with a few other teams. Clemson, Miami come to mind. North Carolina is not quite there yet, so we can't, give them the advantage, at least on paper, against the Noles.
And with that, we'll move on to the schedule recap, where we do have the Tar Heels starting off with a road win in that toss-up game at Minnesota. North Carolina is slight favorites in our minds, but Minnesota should still have a good chance in this game. However, we're going to take the Tar Heels on the road, and then we have them pulling off 3 straight victories at home to finish off the non-conference schedule 4-0. Starting off ACC play, though, we have them losing to Duke as slight favorites. Now, this is a road game, and as we mentioned, Duke is losing Riley Leonard to the transfer portal. However, college football teams lack consistency unless they are one of the best teams in the country, which, to be honest, North Carolina is not. They are not going to be winning a national championship this year or anything like that. So it's understandable that a rivalry game like this they would lose on the road, especially if people aren't quite expecting them to. And Duke still isn't going to be a terrible school despite taking a slight step backwards. Pitt as a home game should be a win for North Carolina. And then Georgia Tech, we also have North Carolina favored, but dropping this game at home to Haynes King and the Yellow Jackets. Out of the first bye week, they pick up a win on the road at Virginia, who will be one of the lower finishing teams in the conference, and dropping another road game at Florida State. However, this is the last game that we think North Carolina is going to lose because following the second bye week, we have them pulling off 2 wins against Wake Forest and Boston College and upsetting North Carolina State. Now, NC State is going to be very good this season, but we like them to lose this final road game to North Carolina. By this point, the Tar Heels are going to be doing pretty well. It's the last game of the season, so there's no doubt they'll be ready for it. And the quarterback play should be very, very good in this game from both sides. But we just like North Carolina to win a very high-scoring shootout in this one, which gives North Carolina a record of 9-3, a projected record of 8.55 and 3.45. So favoring a potential fourth loss somewhere on the schedule. That could be the road opener at Minnesota. It could also be NC State. But there's the possibility that maybe they don't lose a game like Duke. So 9-3, 8-4, somewhere in there seems like a pretty good record for the Tar Heels. We decided to go with 9-3. FPI likes them a little bit closer to 7-5, and between that and 8-4, right in the middle, 7.5 and 4.5. They have an 8% chance to make the college football playoffs and a 0.1% chance to win the national championship. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you in our next video.